Good afternoon. I'm going to give you a quick update of where we stand on a couple of these things. I'm going to go over, for those of the two of you that were here earlier, I'm going to go over some of the numbers we had before. So we have the outward bounds of where we stand right now. When we got here this morning, the counties had received and accepted 1,018,382 absentee by mail ballots. And early vote credit for voting we had received is 2,074,994. That gets us to a total of 3,093,376 votes that are in the bank ready to go. The one thing I could tell you about that is it means we are standing here today with a record turnout for a runoff. So out of the gate we have that. Now let's move. I'm going to come back to some of the military and overseas in a moment because it's in the computer. I'll get through what we have on the sheet right now. Let's move to our equipment questions. We went over what happened in Columbia County this morning. There was LNA done, but apparently it looks like it might have been incomplete logic and accuracy testing. So some precincts were fine. I think that 26 of their, I think it was 46 that were affected by not having what they call an I button, which is a small magnetic key that allows you to turn on the ICP, which is the polling place scanner, so you can open the polling location for scanning. They couldn't do that, so if they couldn't get the poll worker cards to work as well, then they used the emergency ballots, put those into the emergency bin, so voting never stopped in these locations. But because of that potential issue having slowed down, they've gone to court for two precincts, two polling locations for extension, and I almost laughed when I said it's going to extend one from 7 to 7:01, and they're going to do another one from 7 to 7:04. The only other court order extension we don't have a reason for it yet, is one in Tift County for 7:40. We anticipate a couple of other ones that might have opened up late, but we don't have specifics on that yet. There was a rumor of an issue in Gilmer County where they had to ask the people in the courthouse to evacuate for a moment. What we were unclear as to what that was about, and that there was a domestic dispute in the atrium area, I believe, and it was resolved relatively quickly. Had nothing to do with the election, had nothing to do with the other threats we've heard about for the last couple of days. We also have a fake report of power outages in Cobb County. We are in close conjunction with both the EMCs and Georgia Power. There are no power outages currently in Georgia that we're aware of. There was a rumor of one in Cobb. It's not true. Actual equipment issues we've seen today. We've had to swap out 3 ICPs. Those are the polling place scanners. 2 because of a jam, 1 just wasn't scanning properly. The 2 with a jam, 1 was in Douglas, 1 was in Paulding, and the final one that wasn't scanning properly was in Oconee. So that is, of the deployed scanners, that's 0.1%. Then for the touch screens we've seen on BMDs, we had to replace 1 in Tatnall and 4 in DeKalb, and 1 in Floyd. The power supply wasn't working properly. So that's 4 out of about 27,000. So that gets us to 0.02% of the touch screens had to be replaced. Let's see. Now on the military ballots, sorry I keep hanging up on people on your phone, Walter. I wanted to give you all the details of that. And what we're trying to do is get to a point where we know exactly what the outward bounds of all the potential ballots are going to be relatively quickly by tomorrow. That includes all the new absentees and everything, except the military ones, which of course, if they are postmarked by today, they can be received by Friday. So bear with me one second. I'll reopen this. My computer will work. There we go. All right. So we have a total of 27,942 UACAVA, which are the military and permanent and temporary overseas voters that are out there. Now I'm going to break this down to 2 subcategories. Of the military, there were 14,260 requests. Of the temporary and permanently overseas, there were 13,682. So far accepted on the military, we have had 4,748 accepted. And of the overseas, permanent or temporary, we had 6,172 accepted. So that means the remaining potentials for those overseas and military are as follows. For the military, there are 9,512 that still could be coming in by Friday. And for the permanent or temporary overseas, that could be 7,510. Gets us to a total of 17,022 that could still be coming in. And let me re-explain for those who remember here from 2 months ago. That is if all of them came in, let me tell you right now, not all of them are going to come in. We know that because they never all come back in. But that is the outward bound we can see for that. We have put out instructions and working with the counties to have them quickly follow the SCB rule we had, that they had to begin scanning last week on Monday. The counties followed that rule. The majority of them have caught up to what they had through today. So they can still accept ballots through today. They can empty the drop boxes. They can get their mail today. But those still have to be signature matched and everything. But guess what? There's an election today. So they're going to have till tomorrow morning at noon. We're asking to please get it all in. I anticipate many of them will make it. Some of them may not make it all the way through just because of the volume. And again, as we've said repeatedly, these elections workers and county workers have been beaten into the ground or worked into the ground. They're exhausted. So they're trying to do the best they can on some of these things. So hopefully we'll have those answers relatively quickly. Fulton specifically had 98,000 that had been brought in, and they had gotten through 92,000 last night. They had to still do signature verification on the other 6,000. I know they worked through last night, part of this morning, so I don't know how far they've gotten. They're the largest load, obviously, of those that are out there. So we feel really good that the counties are doing a good job of catching up on this, doing the signature verification in public, and we've put out official election bulletins reminding them they have to do the signature verification in public, reminding them they have to do the ballot processing in public. So with that, I will take any questions y'all might have. We'll go to Justin first, sorry.
Any indication you were planning for 1 million people to turn out today? Any indication of what that turnout is looking like?
It is a subset of 1 million. So far, we have no, the problem is despite what you might have read, our systems aren't hooked to the internet, so we do not know how many people have come in. So it's anecdotal evidence that we receive. And there's a difference now between, we're used to lines, meaning there's lots of people. But we've actually got relatively efficient with putting people through our processes. So if there's not lines, it doesn't mean there's not a high turnout. It just means they're processing people. We do have some lines in some specific areas. In Bon Air in Houston County, there was an hour at lunch. They had a lunchtime rush that came in. We've seen some in Woodstock, there was about an hour. In Paulding County, there was about an hour. In Cobb County, we're seeing 20 to 30-minute lines. In DeKalb this morning, we saw some 20-minute lines, but those seems to have abated. But again, this is mainly anecdotal. We do not have specific ways to get this, so we get some more information the same way y'all would from your friends texting you. Yes, ma'am.
It's Amber Walker, by the way.
Amber, so you know.
Just to clarify that you anticipate about 1 million people to turn out today on election day? Is that what you said?
No, we didn't. Some people said that. I said I hope we had a good, healthy turnout. I mean, we could see as low as 600,000. We could see as high as 1.1. We just have no way of knowing. I mean, we've already blown out the turnout record. So no matter what we do, it's going to be a success. So we feel good about that. We would love to see 1 million people vote, because that means that we will have really more than doubled the amount of vote we would have seen in a regular. The previous runoff record was 2.1 million. And that was the Saxby-Chambliss runoff in, don't make me do math at this point, I think it was 2004. Yeah. So if we did this, we'd be at 4 million or so, which is almost double that. Yeah.
You don't think this is a sign, the fact that you guys are having such short wait times in most of these polling stations, you don't see that as a sign as low turnout on election day?
It may or may not be, because we're trying to learn this new system and get used to what those kind of things mean, because we are more efficient at getting people through the lines now than we were previously. Because remember, we've eliminated a step. They don't have to fill out certificates, which is generally speaking the longest particular thing. And when the only choke points we've seen are at check-in and potentially at the scanners. And if a poll manager is managing their poll location correctly, you should really only have them at the scanners, because they can watch and see if there's one coming up at the check-in spot, because they can watch and see at the scanners if there's a line building up. They can say, hold on for a second, now let people through. So that could be part of the reason you have a line. So that could mean there is heavy turnout there. But just because there's not heavy turnout, as an example, I had a friend who voted at 7:30 this morning at a Roswell location, and she came out and she was voter number 35 at 7:30, which means they were averaging one person a minute. So that's pretty efficient, and they're doing a pretty good job of getting people through. And that's the morning rush. It's going to slow down again like we usually see. There's a rush in the morning, slows down that 10, 11 o'clock hour. People go on lunch break, it picks back up again. They're about 1 and lulls back down again. People start leaving work around 4 and it starts kicking back up again. So we have no way of knowing what voter behavior is going to be on this one. We do know that there are several of our large counties that had already reached over 80% of their turnout for the November election. Fulton, DeKalb being the two largest ones that did that. But again, we don't know what voter behavior is going to show on this. We hope people will go out and vote. And again, we want to reiterate, don't self-suppress your vote if you feel like it's not going to count. If you care about who wins these elections, one way or the other, please turn out and vote. As you've seen, we have relatively short lines in most places, so that it should be easy for you. Who else? Yeah, Mark.
Talked about wait times and turnout. They're kind of connected. Your line management tool, I believe, is showing 1 minute waits. One point of confusion is, I'm getting a question, well, if you know how long the line is, why don't you know what the turnout is? Can you explain how those systems work?
Well, the line management in this particular case, too, is not as robust as it was in the November general election. We do not have as many techs who we can control and say, hey, do this. We're still sort of in a test module to kind of see how this all works. And what it is there's an app with a human being who's going and walking around going and asking the poll manager, how long is the wait? About 10 minutes. Okay, they're putting in, or they're giving a person you take this note, and they make note of the time, and then when they get there, they make note of the time again, and then they put in that's that much time. Has nothing to do with the check-ins on the machines themselves, because as we've made clear, they are not connected to the internet, so we can't know turnout at the same time. They're two separate and apart systems. Okay, yes.
I have two questions. Caroline Kenny from CNN. First, can you...
Wait, you got two people in the room?
Yeah,
Is that fair?
A few.
What do you think, is your hometown or something?
Can you give us the latest number of outstanding absentee ballots?
I can, actually. But while I'm looking that up, I'll take another question.
Okay, the other question was, do you guys definitely plan on counting tomorrow?
Remember, the counties count.
Oh,
But we anticipate the results to continue to come in, especially on the absentee by mail that came in today. So we don't know the outward bound of that. That's what I was trying to say. We're trying to get them to check them all in so we all know what the final number is, because we saw confusion based on that because people didn't understand. The people are still voting. No, they're just finally getting around to getting the signature match and making sure, yes, this is an accepted ballot, and they have time to do that. So bear with me a moment while I open one of the 9,000 spreadsheets, and I keep on turning down people. You're going to be very popular, Walter, when you get back your phone. Let's see. Sorry.
So while you do that, since I'm with Caroline.
Yes.
Do you have an estimate as to how long it'll take to get the results?
No. I mean, we're going to start getting results in tonight. We're going to get the biggest bulk of them, like we did last night. It depends on the margin. When you want to get a final outcome,
Yeah.
we will know the outstanding number of ballots. If I'm a betting person, which I'm not, I would say it's going to be a couple of days because I anticipate it'll be a close race one way or the other for probably all three of these seats, because most of these people are going to vote straight party one way and straight party another way from the polling that we've seen.
So a couple of days before we can start seeing the final numbers.
Yes. Again, as best as we can tell. If it's a blowout, who knows? Let's see. That's not right. Let me get back to, oh, never mind. Let me see. Bear with me a second. I'm doing math on the fly, which again is always so exciting. I'm going to have to get back to, oh, hold on. Let me open up another screen, because my math is definitely not working on this. We don't have 500,000 that are still out, I don't think. Let's see. I know this is exciting television for everybody. Let's see. Normally they have this in a nice, pretty PDF for me. They didn't do that today because they were busy doing other things. $306,855 is what we still have out.
1,855. And when, sorry if you maybe I should know this, but when can you accept them? Until tonight at 7 p.m.?
The cutoff is 7 o'clock tonight.
Okay.
That includes drop boxes that have to be locked by 7 o'clock tonight, so that's considered accepted at that point. And that's just getting them in. They still have to go through signature match. Unless, remember, if there's a signature issue, the voter has up to 3 days to cure that ballot. And again, there will be teams of Republicans and Democrats running around the state getting those last ballots cured. The other thing that can happen is on provisional ballots, those can be verified through Friday on those that need to be verified. All right, what else? Yeah, Mark.
Tonight, when we get to vote counting,
Mhm.
everybody's gonna be watching votes come in. Will early votes be counted first, generally speaking, since those are already in the bag, and then we'll get elected?
It depends on how the counties choose to do their work today. Some counties are going to take the early voting scanners to get the memory cards off. That actually takes a little bit of time. Some of them are going to be doing the mail-in first, some will be doing the absentee in person first. But again, it's up to the county. We have encouraged them to get their mail-in voting quickly because I think that was one of the things that caused major confusion in November. Mara, any else? Yes, sorry. She hadn't had one yet.
Hey, Gabe,
Yeah.
Paolo with 11 Alive.
Hi.
Did you expect today to really have that record turnout? I mean, what's it like to kind of go through this today?
Okay, every one of these elections has been different and had their own new sets of ways of making things seem crazier, you know? So today has been relatively light. It's been sort of calm downstairs. I mean, the biggest things we had to deal with more are rumors, like, you know, the rumor of a closure, the rumor of a bomb scare that was actually a domestic incident, you know? So everybody's kind of on edge for some of these things. But in general, it's been steady as she goes. Like I said, we had 0.02% of touchscreens have a problem, 0.1% of scanners. You know, our biggest issues are kind of like when a plane takes off and lands are your two biggest things. We took off this morning, we didn't really have any poll pad issues other than a few user errors in some of those cases where like the encoder wasn't quite in exactly right and you had to wiggle it a little bit, kind of like, you know, when your iPhone gets older and you have to wiggle the cord so it starts to charge, that kind of thing. But in general, we haven't seen anything be too over the top crazy, which is good. We want steady, but we want to see that the people who want to cast their vote, that their votes are going to count and they turn out to vote today. Amara?
About Columbia County.
Mhm.
So some of the precincts there may extend their.
Well, two of them will. One until 7:01 and the other one until 7:04,
Okay, and this
which
is,
again feels a little ridiculous to say.
And because who went to court over this?
The county did. The county themselves. Mhm.
Um,
Because they can't keep it open themselves. They have to go by the county themselves. They don't have, the only way you can go past what the state law says is to get a court order. The county felt, okay, we were a minute late starting, let's add that minute to the back. We were 4 minutes late starting, let's add that 4 minutes to the back.
Because of those issues with the scanners. and
Correct.
voting machines.
Yes.
Gotcha, okay.
And there'll be a couple of other precincts and polling locations around the state that happens with. Like I said, Tift County has one at 7:40. And as we get further in the day, we keep collecting those court orders in and we'll have a full list by the end of the night.
Heard a few complaints about people not being let off work to vote. Is that something your office has heard? And Georgia law does contain some provisions allowing people to be off.
We have cited people to that specific law. It's not that anybody can take off for 2 hours to go do this. Your hours have to cover the times you wouldn't be able to do. It's a 12-hour shift basically. You have to have time within that to do. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm giving you the basics as a layman. If you work from 9 to 5, they don't have to give you time off because you have 2 hours at the beginning and 2 hours at the end. So that kind of thing doesn't happen. But say you work a 12-hour manufacturing shift, they do have to give you those 2 hours to go do it. Anything else? All right. Thanks, y'all.